Welcome, welcome, brothers and sisters, um, residents of York South-Weston. My name is Faisal Hassan. I'm your member of Provincial Parliament for York South-Weston. And tonight we are talking about a virtual conversation on safe return to schools with local parents and teachers. And shortly we'll be joined by leader Andrea Horwath, the official opposition leader. And also tonight we have Jessica Shock, a local residents and child and youth worker with the Toronto District School Board, and also Zara Vance, a local educator, and Julie Bison, local parent. And shortly we'll be joined also Dave Bennett, also a local parent and chair Western Village Residents Association, and also Western Village Conversation District and Parent Council member of the St. John the Evangelist local Catholic School, and also Paul D. Prospero, second Vice President, and also OCT Toronto Secondary Unit. And before we begin, I wish to acknowledge at this time the land that we now known as York South-Weston is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuits, and Métis peoples. So shortly at about 6:30, Andrea Horwath will be joining us and here shortly. And thank you for joining us this evening, members of the community, residents of York South-Weston, for this very important discussion. For weeks, we have watched as the government failed to listen to the public health experts, parents, educators, and staff. They have been clear. A safe reopening of schools in September requires the ability to maintain safe social distancing. No matter how many times the government tries to spin this, we all know the truth. The school boards do not have the resources they need. Now, after delaying the start of the year, we are hearing reports of classes being collapsed and class sizing increasing. We can do better. Joining me this evening are local parents and educators across York South-Weston. I'm happy to have them join us in this discussion, and I look forward to their contribution. I would like to start by introducing a special guest this evening. My leader, Andrea Horwath, is the leader of the Ontario's New Democrats, the official opposition leader. From her early career in community development to today, she's always believed that government should be about giving people the opportunity to build a good life, no matter where in Ontario they live, or when this province became home. In 2018, Andrea led her party to become the official opposition, the largest official opposition in a generation. Today, half of the members of her MPP team are women. They represent ridings from every region of the province. And together, we are reflective of the diversity of Ontario. Andrea spends time traveling the province. She loves seeing and hearing firsthand the challenges of Ontarians are facing and proposing solutions. Also, a mom, Andrea believes all Ontarians deserve health care they can count on, high quality seniors care, and public schools that give kids a great start. She is fighting for good jobs and real opportunities and more affordable life for everyone. Welcome, Andrea, to York South-Weston and to this virtual conversation with York South-Weston local parents and educators.
Well, thanks very much. Thanks everyone, first of all, for being here this evening with us. It's really great that we could be doing this together, and I'm really glad to be joining you with my friend, Faisal Hassan, who is your MPP for York South-Weston and your official opposition NDP critic for youth engagement. As you know, Faisal has been one of this community's most dedicated advocates. And as an MPP, he has been instrumental in bringing the voices of York South-Weston families, Ontario's youth, and working people to our caucus table at Queen's Park. But Faisal is also a founding member of an important organization that we've been able to establish here in our province, the Ontario NDP's Black Caucus, Ontario's first ever formally recognized Black Caucus. And I want to thank you, first and foremost, Faisal, for all of the great work that you do. You know, we're here today because each one of us cares deeply about education in our province. I know that many of you folks are parents who are engaging in this meeting today, and that for months you've been doing, you know, the very important work, in fact, the superhuman work, the juggling act, if you will, of taking care of little ones at home, you know, when it was part of the school year, back from March to June, helping with school age kids at the same time with their remote learning, and in many cases, also having to get to work or working from home. That was a huge effort from all of you, and certainly we have recognized that and appreciate it. But of course, what all of us want, and what all of us have wanted for some time now, is getting back to school in September, 5 days a week, and safely. Those are things that we've wanted for months now. But instead, Mr. Ford is cutting corners with a bargain basement scheme that really puts the health of kids and educators at risk. You know, just think, I mean, if a child were to wake up in the morning with a fever and a cough, for example, but mom and dad don't have any paid sick days to use, then what are they expected to do in order to deal with the child who's not feeling well? You know, as Faisal mentioned, we're in a situation where boards are collapsing, where schools are collapsing the classes. And what that means is that where classes might have fewer kids because some parents have the ability to keep their kids home, instead of leaving those classrooms with fewer kids, the classrooms with fewer kids are being combined. They're being collapsed together to make larger classes, which makes no sense whatsoever. It's going to create larger classes and even more crowded rooms, but that's exactly what's happening. You know, when you look at kids who are going to be busing to school, there's another example of a really dangerous situation, right? I mean, those school buses are going to be crammed with up to 70 kids in a school bus, shoulder to shoulder, crammed onto those buses. What's the bus driver going to do? I mean, the bus driver can't be at the same time making sure all 70 kids are wearing their masks and, you know, behaving appropriately, while at the same time keeping his or her eyes on the road and delivering those kids to class or home safely. It's an impossible situation. You know, if just one student with COVID-19 ends up, you know, in school, the virus could spread like wildfire. And you know what? It should never have come to this situation that we're in. And I have to say that if I were the premier right now, I'd be doing things much, much differently. You know, and I would have been doing things much differently for quite some time now. I would have been hiring teachers, hiring education workers, hiring more custodians, educational assistants, bus drivers. I would have been making sure that I was working around the clock to improve the condition of our schools, to fix the schools that are needing repair, to make sure that the ventilation systems were working properly, the HVAC systems, make sure the windows were opening. All of that work should have been being done during the summer. But Mr. Ford didn't want to invest in that kind of work. He didn't want to get that work done on behalf of kids and education workers, and that's just not acceptable. I would have been making sure there were touchless faucets and touchless fountains at the schools. I would have been making sure over the summer that we were lining up those temporary classroom spaces to be able to accommodate, you know, more classrooms and more teachers and more distancing for kids with smaller classes of about 15 per class. That could have been achieved. If I were the premier, that's exactly what I would have been doing. You know, kids need small class sizes. That's just the bottom line. And they also need the guidance of caring adults in the schools to help them learn and practice good pandemic behaviors all the time. It's going to be really hard for a teacher with maybe an assistant in the classroom of 30 or 28 or 25 little ones. It's going to be really hard to make sure every one of those kids is able to wash their hands when necessary, coming in and out of the classroom. It's going to be really a problem. And so that's why we need to see smaller classes and more caring adults in the schools. You know, if I was the premier, I wouldn't just be crossing my fingers and hoping for the best, the way Mr. Ford appears to be doing. I would be actually stepping up and acting to make sure that our schools are safe coming up next week and in the following couple of weeks as the staggered school return takes place. And so I just want to say, as the leader of the official opposition, as the leader of Ontario's NDP, it just doesn't have to be the way that Mr. Ford has made it, where parents are left with no good choices in terms of what to do. Many parents have no choice. They have to get back to work. They have to send their little ones to school, and that's a choice that's not sitting well with parents because they're worried. They're worried about the safety of their kids. For those parents that have the privilege of being able to keep their kids at home, you know, even they're not happy either. I mean, they're not happy with that choice. They're worried because they know that the mental health and the socialization, the kids, you know, needing to get back to some kind of, you know, normal activity when it comes to education and their friends and classmates. They know that their kids are not going to have that opportunity if they're at home. So again, no good choices, and that's particularly because Mr. Ford and Mr. Lecce have decided to pinch pennies on the backs of our kids and to bring forward this bargain basement plan that is going to put kids and educators and education workers and families and extended families at risk. Not good enough. Not what kids deserve. Not what Ontario deserves. So on that note, I'm glad that we're here tonight to have this conversation. And thank you, Faisal, for inviting me to say a couple of words to you know, to your constituents, to the people who are joining in on this conversation. I'm really proud to be here, and I want to wish you a great meeting for the time that you're going to be engaging. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Andrea. Thank you for your time, and we are happy that you've joined us, and hopefully we'll be inviting you another time to come to York South-Weston. Folks, love you, Andrea. So
looking forward to it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And folks, neighbors and friends, tonight we are joined by local parents and also my leader, Andrea Horwath, who will be leaving us shortly. First, Julia Bizon, a local parent, and Sarah Vance, a local educator. We also have Dave Bennett, local parent and chair, Western Village Residents Association, chair of the Western Heritage Conservation, and parent council member of the St. John the Evangelist local Catholic right here in Weston. Also, Jessica Shock, local residents and child and youth worker with Toronto District School Board. And hopefully will be joined shortly by Ron Scott, who's also a parent and concerned for the safety of his children as well. So we will start, we welcome first Paul D. Prospera, who is the second vice president of the OECT Toronto Secondary Unit for the Catholic Board.
Thank you.
Yes, would you like to say a few things?
Oh, well, thanks for having me on the discussion. You know, so I represent Catholic high school teachers in Toronto. There's about 2,500 of them. And, you know, all very concerned about this lack of Back to School plan. My brothers and sisters who are teaching in the elementary panel, especially so. And, you know, they're worried about their students, their families, the parents. It's a complete nightmare. We hear from dozens of members a day on the concerns about this plan. And we can do very little. The board gets their marching directions from the Ford government, and the Ford government is not doing anything for them. In fact, they're making it harder. We started the summer with these discussions, and nowhere was it mentioned that they would move teachers from the building to an online environment and then start collapsing classes. It was news to us when it was news to everybody else. And it's only given us another layer of like, really unfortunate circumstances to try to mitigate as best we can on a union level to see what we can do to help the situation. But there's not really a lot. When they decided to collapse these classes, they effectively decided they didn't need the teachers, that they would make the classes as big as they could, that they weren't going to hire teachers separate for online learning, which is what we thought was going to happen originally. There wasn't, not only do the elementary portion is a big concern because there will be large class sizes, but in the secondary panel, students won't get a fulfillment education. They won't have the options of taking classes they normally would because you're removing these teachers from the classroom. And even though in the secondary level, there'll be smaller cohorts, there was a cost neutral for the government. So they just spend one dime on that. But they also have now robbed students of a high school experience that could have been better by leaving the teachers in the classroom. So we are doing what we can with the local school board, who doesn't have a lot of room to move on this, but it really is unfortunate. And again, everything at the last minute, it's really bad, and we're all concerned for everyone. So I look forward to the discussion. Thanks for having me.
Well, thank you for joining us. I'll also bring a parent, local parent, Julie Bison.
Hi, yes, thank you for having me. I'm glad to be a part of this discussion. So I guess what I can bring to the table in just speaking to other parents in my community, it's the same frustration that Andrea and that we've all heard, the same fears and concerns that parents have. And there's a lot of things that are just missing from this year, obviously starting this year. It's just everything is abnormal. Myself, I have 3 sons, one in grade 5, one starting grade 2, and one that's supposed to be starting junior kindergarten this year. My concerns for each of them are very different and specific, but my junior kindergarten obviously is a huge concern because at least my other kids have had the experience of being in school while it was normal and not in COVID. So they can at least appreciate the difference and know that they are in circumstances that are just abnormal. But my junior kindergarten cannot. And we have received little, nothing actually. There's been no back to school package or starting school package. Even when completing my registration just the past week, there's nothing being offered and nothing being told. So luckily I am a veteran parent, I suppose, having 3 of them. So I know a little bit of what it's like to start kindergarten, and I can understand what it's like to try and prepare him for what the classroom is going to be like. But other parents don't have that option. And even so much as even having them prepared to wear a mask, what it's going to be like in the school environment. And I don't even know what to tell them because we still haven't even confirmed class sizes, a teacher, the teacher part is neither here or there really. The class size issue is a big thing. Hygiene, what it's actually going to be like in the classroom. None of this stuff has been talked to parents. So, and that's part of what parents are fearing. We keep hearing people trying to say, well, there's just this whole fear around it. We just need to get into the school and you'll see that the dust will settle and everything's not as scary. And I don't feel like that's what it's actually going to be like. It might even be scarier than what we've imagined, because it's just a very different environment than what we're used to, what the kids were used to. So I guess my biggest question right now is, what can we do? That's all parents keep asking, keep talking about, is what can we do, to prepare our kids for what school is going to be like, but also what can we do to advocate for change?
Good. We'll bring Dave Bennett, who is a local parent and also a parent council member of the St. John the Evangelist, a local Catholic school here, and also chair of the Western Village Residents Association and chair of the Western Heritage Conservation, who's also an active member of our community, or who's also a parent. Dave?
Thank you, Fazil, first for putting this together for everyone. I have 4 children. They're a lot older now, with the youngest in grade 11. But one of our child is has special needs, and definitely all her social programs haven't existed in 5 months, and so she feels the brunt of it the most. But that we could talk about that for 3 hours. But everybody's anxiety is very high for all the parents, right? Including the children, right? My wife babysits in our house, and we could even see it with the little ones, just what they're overhearing and what they're seeing, and they're different. They're different than when it was January, February. Everybody's being affected because everybody's COVID experience varies. But we have a neighbor who knows 5 people that have passed because of this, right? And then so it's varying. I would love to see each school do a little video of what the child's going to experience on the first day, right? And then, because there's a lot of anxiety, what's this all going to look like? And it's not fair in the western area. So years ago, we were the poorest riding in Ontario. And so that means that, what, most of our residents are going to be forced to send their children to school, right? And so the public board came out today, I believe, and so 78% of their children are going to school. And so this whole idea that we're going to have smaller class sizes and all that, and I think that was Ford's hope maybe at the very beginning, isn't going to happen, right? And we had 5 months to prepare for this, and I think just a little bit of eyes in on that environment would really reduce everybody's anxiety. Is that going to change the health? No, it's not. But I think it's going to help people sleep together. And I really appreciate the time tonight there, Fazil. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. And those of you who are joining us live, Faisal Hassan, NDP, will try to get your questions and also your comments added into the discussion. And as soon as we have that, we'll be able to select those of you who have questions or comments as well to incorporate our discussion here. I'll bring Sarah Vance. Sarah Vance is also a local educator and also a parent.
Hi. I want you to know that at the high school level, things are as bad and worse than you think they are. They are really, really bad. I was in my school building for the first time yesterday. We have no hand sanitizer. We have no cleaning supplies. We don't know what our schedules are. So, I know, Julie and Dave, I really hear you when you say our kids need to know what to expect. And one of the things that I want to tell you is that the Ford government has purposely thrown boards into absolute and utter chaos. And so we can't tell people what to expect because we have absolutely no clue. I've just found out yesterday that it's overwhelmingly likely that I will lose my job at my school and be transferred elsewhere. And just this afternoon, the numbers are coming out that most schools will have about 10 teachers that'll be laid off and they'll be transferred to online learning, meaning that all of the schedules for all of the high school students in Toronto completely up in the air. And as will be also, a lot of the information for elementary students. So I think that that's one piece. And I think that understanding it very much is coming from the top and resulting in this situation of absolute chaos is really important. And I think the other thing too is that there actually is an incredible amount of grassroots work that is going on in Ontario, and that has been very, very powerful. I don't think that it's any coincidence that the federal Liberals have suddenly released billions of dollars to intervene in education. That's because of really, really hard work of just regular people like us doing that work on the ground. So I would urge you not to give up and to recognize. So I'm part of a group called the Ontario Education Workers United, and we have a group about just over 3,000 people. And we have been very actively intervening and advocating and being in the media and raising these issues and working with our unions and bringing out toolkits to keep our schools safe in September. So what are the checklists? How can we advocate as staff members if we're forced into the situation? And as well as that, the Ontario Parent Action Network has been doing extraordinary work. Ontario Families for Public Education has been doing incredible work, getting information out, speaking truth about what's happening, organizing with epidemiologists and public health officials. So I would urge you to recognize, like, you know, as a teacher and as a parent, I don't get to say there's not much I can do because I have to do things. I have to try. That's my job. Like I get paid to help take care of your kids, and I'm a parent, so I take care of my kid. And so I would urge you to, like, feel those feelings by all means, but recognize this is exactly what Doug Ford wants, is for us all to feel like we are trapped, we are defeated, there is nothing we can do, we didn't know this was coming. This is a big surprise. This isn't a big surprise. Ever since this government came into power, they've been intent on taking money out of education. We knew that class sizes would be collapsed because class sizes are based on a funding formula of how many teachers you have for the number of students that are in class. And so they just refused to change that funding formula. So we're stuck with exactly the same thing. So they've been very, very clear, I think. They've employed a lot of spin doctors, but they have used essentially the same tactics. So there's a lot of work to be done. There's a lot of, genuine despair to be felt, but I don't have a right to give up, and I would urge all of us to keep pushing.
Well, thank you, Sarah. And now I will turn to Jessica Schock, local residents and child and youth worker with the Toronto District School Board, who also lives right here in our community. Welcome, Jessica.
Thank you so much for having me, Faisal, and thank you to everyone who's shared. It's been really great to hear what your experiences are. So I am currently a child and youth worker with the Toronto District School Board, and I work in a special ed program. And as Dave said with his daughter, you are seeing drastic setbacks with kids in spec ed programs. Online learning was not made for them, and the government has not done enough to accommodate them in what they need. Now, the government had this great plan where they said, we're going to give school boards the decision to do what works for them. And that was taken from them last minute. And this plan was put in place. In this 21-page document that the Ford government released, if you go through it, students can come in symptomatic, stay there all day, and then go home. Parents do not have to get them tested. It's not safe for our kids in our communities. And the biggest thing, like I said, is deficits. Where I talked to a principal today, she's losing 16 of her staff because of everything that's going on. We are seeing online of teachers talking about grades 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 being put on the same online cohort. How do teachers teach that? How do they give every student the support they need? They can't. And we are seeing Doug Ford making this his own personal issue. He is trying to say it's the unions. They're uncooperative. I can say, as someone who is part of my union, OSSTF, we are doing everything we can. We are advocating for students and parents, and we want to make sure that the Ford government implements a plan that is safe for all students. I can say, as Justice Sarah said, we know nothing. We're in the dark. What is released online, we find out usually the same day. We are not being given information. Our unions are trying to bargain with the government and they won't meet with us. We saw that through teacher contract negotiation. I will say that I really appreciate the patience the parents have had with us, because so many of you have come to us and have been, how can we help? What can we do for you? We have parents donating supplies if needed, or we see parents actually wanting to be very involved in their kids' education so they can get the best experience. I think, as we're seeing, Doug Ford has made this his own personal issue. And instead of taking accountability and saying, look, we don't have the best plan, he's blaming others.
Well, thank you, Jessica. Those of you who are joining us, of Faisal Hassan, NDPE. My name is Faisal Hassan. I'm your member of Provincial Parliament. And tonight we are talking safe return to school with local parents and local educators. And those of you who wants to ask questions and share your comments and your ideas will be able to share with our guest here this evening. And I know that medical experts also are clear in stating that small class sizes are necessary. Even Sick Kids guidance document on reopening schools states that addressing structural deficiencies such as large class sizes, small class rooms, poor ventilations must be part of any plan to reopen schools. And that is also important because we have schools that are over 80 years, 100 years, and has been neglected for disrepairs, and ventilations is a big issue, you know, and the answer to that is just open the window, you know. What happens in wintertime? I mean, I know it's a big concern about that. Has there been any examples? I mean, I know there isn't any examples, any other jurisdictions in terms of ventilations, but it is an issue. And also Dr. Ronald Cohen, President and CEO of Sick Children, has stated he cannot support a plan in which class sizes do not allow physical distancing. And I think that's also the same echoing by the public health units from across the province have also raised concerns that the provincial plan does not allow for appropriate distancing. All of this is consistent with advice from Canada's Chief Public Health Officer to avoid the 3 C's, you know, closed spaces, crowded places, and close contact, all of which will be inherent in a return to school with full-sized classes. And that is a concern from this in Ontario overall. And the students in Ontario deserve a chance at safe and lasting reopening of schools. Parents in Ontario deserve to return to work, knowing that their children are safe, especially in our community. David talked about in our community, we are working class, middle class families, that we have to go out and work in order to continue, you know, paying our bills and so forth. So it's important that knowing parents, knowing their children are safe is crucial. And that is what we need. All Ontarians deserve a responsible provincial plan that does not jeopardize the efforts of the last 6 months. I think many of our frontline workers, many of members of our community have done a fantastic job in the last 6 months of continuing social distancing. A safe return to school will cost money. Of course, it will cost money, and it's the right thing to do, but the costs of a failed return will be so much greater. As an Ontarian, we need to introduce a provincial plan that reduces class sizes to keep Ontarians safe, and that's crucial. And what do you say to, of course, safety is important. You talked about your experiences. Is there any experiences that your neighbors, that you're members of other extant families, the discussions you had? I know we are all worried about, and still this government has a chance to do the right thing and put resources to make sure that our families feel safe, and that schools, return to schools also is also not created more problem. And if we have a second wave, then we don't want suddenly our children being in the front line of that second wave, because definitely social distancing, smaller size classes, it's important. Things depending on our behavior, we understand social distancing, but young kids might not know what social distancing is, and that's a concern too. So I know, Julie, you talked about before ventilations and concerns you have, and that's also neglect of disrepair on many schools we have. I know San Evangelist, we have a new branch school, but still I think, I don't know if that addresses new schools. Do they also address the issue of ventilation concerns at the moment? Because in winter, when it comes, then that would be a big issue as well. So Julie?
Yeah, if I could. Definitely a concern, just added to the growing list of questions that everyone has to ask about what's going to happen. My school, I'm at Weston Memorial, my children are, is 100 years old, and obviously needs to have a lot of repairs for it to be deemed safe, especially right now. I get even more than the ventilation as an issue and the condition of these schools, though, is just the amount of endless questions that we cannot answer. And there just seems to be this understanding that we're going to shut down again. And that's just, even parents I talk to, like, well, I'm going to send my kids back for the first couple of weeks and see how it goes. Like, as if that's the best course of action. That's the plan that we're running with right now. And it's just absurd. We should have had, and we just keep saying this, we should have had this, we should have had that. I don't know what we can do at this point. We're 2 weeks away from school starting. There's no we should anymore. The kids are going back with and I feel like the majority of parents are just under this understanding that they're going to be taking them back out, or that it's going to get shut down again in a couple weeks, months. I don't know. I don't even, it's all just assumptions, where really it just could have been done so much safer and everyone could have been at ease. I don't think ever at ease. I don't think there's any way to go into what we're going into with anybody in any frame of mind thinking this is going to be easy, or 100% safe, but it definitely could have been in a lot better, we could have been in a lot better position than we are right now. But yes, okay, so ventilation, I don't even know what to say. I heard the minister speak today on 680 News, and totally dismissed, I think, and from what I understand, put the blame on the boards that they did provide funding and that the schools should have been adequately prepared right now, which is absolutely hogwash and not the truth. And I don't see how any school could be prepared for that, even if the funding was provided back in March and they had all this time to get it ready. I still don't understand how you're going to get, how many schools are aged and need fully new ventilation systems or HVAC, whatever. I don't know all the terminology behind it all, but so many of the schools in the TDSB are well beyond desperate need of repair. So
I hear you. Thank you. I know that how can teacher implement new safety measures, due to COVID-19 and introduce a new math curriculum? Not enough hours in a day. How do we expect teachers to do that? That's a question. But I think, Dave, I know that our community have waited so long, I guess more than 7 years to have this school. Does that also, this school in this winter, does it address the ventilation issues? Or is it also the same concerns we're having with the old schools?
Good question. And so the Toronto Catholic District School Board has 197 schools. Okay, our school was at that location for 163 years, believe it or not. And most older schools outside of 15 to 18 years are all radiator based. Okay, so there's no air movement. My personal feeling is that's a good thing, right? My sister works at a nursing home and they have no cases, and I believe that's why, because they don't touch services, staff are in particular hallways and they don't rotate since March. But for the new schools in the last dozen years, they will need HEPA filters installed in all of the air makeup units. The board has approved spending for that. Are they going to have time to put that in place? I don't know. We all know that windows only open 4 inches, right, for in all the classrooms, and that's for a fall hazard. And so even thinking that the windows are going to give you all of this fresh air and all that, we haven't, back to everybody's point here, we haven't tested a 70-meter square of children and having 30 children in there and 2 adults, right, to this point in Canada. And so that's where everybody's worry is. I know I hear from a lot of trustees, well, Dave, we could have classrooms in the gym, and then that would make it larger, and therefore we'd have more spacing. But I'm more worried about the surfaces, right? That doorknob going into the school, unless someone's standing there, an adult, right, standing there and leaving that door open and making sure the child still doesn't touch the door frame, because kids love to touch stuff. My wife babysits from 2 feet down. Everything needs to get cleaned all the time, right? Kids love to touch stuff as they go through. And that's my worry is all the hard surfaces, right? So sorry to go on a tangent there, but yeah, the scenario is very different from school to school.
Well, thank you. Those of you who are joining us, you're joining us live, Faisal Hassan, NDP. And tonight we have our guests, local members of the community, local parents and local educators. And we are talking about safe return to schools. If you have any concerns, any questions, any comments, we will be able to share if we have enough time. But if you do, we'll be able to share with our guest, Faisal Hassan, NDP. And I know now, I mean, the teachers are now expected to do more than the resources that they're given. And what it's like, you know, having a situations like this. We have never expected this, but we needed, because of COVID-19, with the global pandemic, we need the teachers and the parent being listened to and work with them and to make sure that those concerns are addressed, because the safety comes number one issue. So I think we would have an opportunity tonight to share this a town hall meeting and your concerns to the government to carry on and speak to the importance of a safe return to school. So I'll bring, I know Jessica, you work in the schools in different capacity, not a teacher, but what is your worries now? The situation now, which you have never found before, but now, and also the little resources out there, and the challenges that the community members, your neighbors have. What is your thoughts?
The big thing is, like, they're talking about these wellness rooms where students will go if they have symptoms. We don't know which staff are having to be in charge of them. The Ford government was going on and on about how we have 500 public health nurses for Ontario. There's 600 schools in TDSB alone. Like, how are you going to do this? And then, okay, these nurses go to these wellness rooms where kids might have symptoms. And what are they going to do? Go to another school? It's going to spread like wildfire. We honestly have no idea what we're doing. All I know about my school is only certain entrances will be open, but we don't know who's staffing them. I believe it was we're not even allowed to do staggered entry and staggered exits. Like, there are solutions to some of these problems, but we're being told, no, that doesn't work. It does, and we're telling you what does work. And on the whole ventilation thing, I think I'm in a school that's over 100 years old. It was there during World War II. So my school is very old, and there are currently only 2 secondary schools in TDSB that were built within the last 20 years. The average age of a secondary school in the Toronto District School Board is 64 years old. How many of these buildings are going to be able to have their ventilation done? And I think a really big thing to remember is there was a massive backlog in TDSB, and there was supposed to be money going towards it. I believe it was 500 million, and the Ford government cut it. And they had a chance to fix this way before COVID even happened, and they didn't want to. And we're seeing the government saying, oh, we're investing all this money. All they are doing is putting money back in that they took away before COVID hit, because they realized, oops, we should have been building our schools from a method that focused on prevention instead of now we're panicking because it's already a crisis. There's not much we can do. So I can say as a worker, I'm really concerned knowing what my job is, because when I got hired years ago, I had a job description and I knew exactly what I was doing. I now don't. There was talks about trying to have educators and assistants facilitate COVID tests on site. We are not trained for that. It is so unsafe. And I think that's my big thing. I don't even know what my job is anymore, because I'm now expected to do so much, and it's so hard to support students when before we don't even have the resources to support them before COVID. And now what? We have to support our students, and we have to make sure they're safe. So that is one of my biggest concerns, for sure.
Well, thank you. I think there's still time to fix underfunded and a safe back to school plan, and we can put our voices loud and clear. And you can also sign petitions that we have on Ontario NDP, support safer reopening of schools. I know Paul Di Prospero, I know that you also are a leader, and I know teachers are worried. They're worried in many fronts in terms of COVID-19. They're concerned about their students. They're concerned because they too are parents. They're also concerned about their children. So what is the sense now about the worries about the parents and also the teachers as being having a double hat, and that being the worries they have, as you're also one of the leaders of the teachers?
That is one of our main concerns with our members. Many of them are parents, and there is no solution for their childcare, for what happens if they have to watch their children, if they get sick. You know, the government, our school boards don't have a plan to help. And there's many teachers who are parents, and you know, there's two teachers in a household, right? And they both can't go to work if they need childcare. So it's a challenge, and you know, the exposure levels, and there's no solution. We haven't heard from the school board or the ministry of any accommodations that will be granted to them, and we think that's quite wrong, because they're also very panicking. They have to go into work this week, next week, and then when school starts, you know, it's a big concern.
Very good. Well, thank you. I know that also Sarah is also a teacher and a parent, and this is also, I suppose, the same feelings and sentiments that you and your colleagues are feeling.
Yeah, I think everyone has spoken to it so well, and there's, you know, we could go on for the next couple of years about all of the very real concerns that we all have. Just a little footnote, I actually work in one of the schools, one of the only schools in the TDSB that was built in the 1990s. And even in my school, it's funny that you were talking about ventilation. My windows are bolted shut, and classrooms aren't made to, they weren't made to even accommodate 30 kids in the first place, even like jam-packed like sardines. But I have a nice big classroom, and I set it up for the 15, which is what I would have. And even there, the only way they could be socially distanced 2 meters is if nobody ever moved from their desk ever. You know, I have just enough room. So, you know, my big worry really, honestly, is that we get caught. We get caught in just that place of complaint and anxiety, because it's so easy to land there and not move beyond, because it's hard, right? So I would love to see us moving to a place of trying to understand, why is this happening? It's not like Doug Ford doesn't know. It's not like he hasn't been getting advice. It's not like epidemiologists haven't been talking about what is needed, and we don't know what's required, and there aren't good, safe, sane solutions to make the problem so much better. So why would these choices be made? And what can we do about it pragmatically? So that's kind of where I'm sort of hanging my energies at this moment.
I hear you. I'm just going to try to see if there's any comments from the audience there. I think Donilo Cabrera says there's no safe going back to school. And also here also Tanya O'Connor says, what plan? That is the trouble, no clear plan from the province, pretending to throw money at a situation is not leadership there. And Crystal Stewart says, please join the Facebook Toronto District School Board Ward 6 parents group to keep discussing what we can do as parents. They're also having another discussion going on there, but she doesn't, Crystal didn't state the time and when. Again, teachers need to get that message of chaos out to the general public and counteract. Well, that's another feeling of another one of our audience there. Hello to everyone, and nice to see you again. Paul Carabella. Hello, Paul, and thank you. Those of you who, if you have any comments, we'll be able to share your comments, and if you have questions, we'll be able to try to answer them. Thank you. And I know that this is an important issue. I think the number one issue is not only in our community, but I believe the cross province, because education is number one, the health and safety, and all this is an important component. I think still there's a chance the government can listen and correct and improve their plan to make sure that our community, so that we avoid catastrophic chaos situations. And this is also, we cannot play the health of our young people, especially our children. I know we are getting close to the end, but before that, is there any message you want, or experiences or concerns you have that you want to share with us?
If I could just speak
Yeah,
on
sure.
just specifically to our neighborhood and our riding, I feel like we are the epicenter of Toronto's outbreak. And I just don't know if it has been addressed enough. I know we've been like my school for sure is in the list of the 100 schools that will have smaller class sizes, which I'm assuming is true. I don't know if those numbers have come out yet officially. If that is going to happen, I'm just doubtful about it, but I'm hopeful that at least there is some positive outcome of the fact that we are in one of the hardest hit neighborhoods and ridings in Toronto. I still think that's unfortunate as well, that is the only reason why we would be getting smaller class sizes. But I guess that's the question I want to leave lingering in the air, though, is has there been enough priority put on racialized communities?
Very good. Very good.
Yes, no, I guess I leave it at that question. That's my biggest concern. And I think when we're speaking of Weston, or York South specifically, that is one of the biggest things that we should be focusing on too.
Yes, very good. I think, yes, very good point. And I think you're right. Our community, we had so much neglect, not only the last 2 years, but the last 15 years. And in case in point, we can do better. There's no doubt about that. That's why we want the input and ideas of our members of the community, people who know exactly what's need to be done. And definitely we need facilities in terms of COVID-19 testing facilities in our community. And also concerns have been raised by members of the community in terms of the schools also, for when youngsters go back to school. So there are many resources we need, and we need the attention of the government to provide a lot of support and assistance. And there's areas where we can do fine, and that's opportunity of jobs. And when people are given hope and job and opportunity, they will go out, and they're hardworking, decent people here. But we have been, unfortunately, even in auto insurance, we pay higher premiums in any other communities because of our postal code. And it's not only us, it's throughout the GTA and many communities as well. But yes, you're right. We need to put more resources into that. But I think the government needs to take action and understand the special, unique situation in northeastern part, especially in our community, and we need extra support in that. Jessica, you were saying that you wanted to say something, yeah?
Yeah, Julie just made an amazing point, and we have seen data that shows COVID specifically hits racialized communities because they do not have resources. And there are studies out there showing that racialized individuals, when they go to get healthcare services, they are not treated equally. They are discriminated against, and their pain and their symptoms are not taken as valid. So I think Julie brings up an amazing point that really, really needs to be addressed by this government, because it's currently not. And I think the message I really, really want to get out there is, parents, we need you. When I'm an educator and Sarah's a teacher, when we advocate and say, no, our unions are doing the right thing, like they're telling you what's going on, this is the real thing, we get told, oh, you're just a union person, you're all for the union. We need parents. Now that this information is out there, we need you guys to advocate, because we're looked at as biased by the government. And I think a lot of parents don't realize you have a lot more control than you think. we get to vote. We get to vote these people in. So I think parents, thank you for everything you've done. And we really, really, really need you now to help advocate so we can have a safe return, because as we're seeing, the plan just doesn't work. And what Dave said, sorry, Sarah, what Dave said about using spaces. I specifically work in a spec ed class. I don't even know where my kids are going to eat lunch. I don't know if they can go to the cafeteria. I don't know if they can have gym. It's so unfair and so inequitable. This needs to be addressed because the plan doesn't work for everyone.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I know we're coming to the close to the ending of our program, but I will give you an opportunity one more time for closing remarks, and I'll start Paul de Prospero.
Thank you. I think that point about, we're so grateful for the parents who organize and support the teachers in the classroom, and realizing that, teacher unions have a lot of resources to do this, but so easily demonized by governments, or for government really, when it comes to the message. And we saw this in the winter when parents overwhelmingly supported teachers to keep class sizes down. It worked. And so that is a great point that was made there. And they need to see that parents are voters, especially, right? That's who this government doesn't care about public education. We know this from day one. They're not interested in investing in this public service. At public pressure, if they know that they're going to lose an election because of it, then they may do something. So thank you for all your hard work, everyone, and your support.
Thank you, Paul de Prospero. And now I'll come to Dave Bennett.
Thank you. And Paul, you touch on a lot of good points there. And for the parents that are listening in, we do have a large voice. We got a new school at our location because the parents advocated, right? And so it does take a while. Don't get discouraged, right? You can pass on the baton, right? When you get tired or if you have to go to work and stuff like that, there's nothing wrong with passing on the baton. We got a new school where no one thought we could ever get a new school. And if it is an education thing for Ford, well, then I say we turn this issue on its head and say it's a health thing. It's not an education thing. If he doesn't want to support education, because it will come around and all fit in. Without the health of Ontario, and Ontario's done, right? He's all about the business moving forward, and he's not going to get that in that regard. And so I think everybody has very good, valid points, and we can make a difference. Thanks.
Well, thank you, Dave. Thank you. And I know that you're doing a lot of important work in our community. Thank you. I'll come to Julie Bison. Yeah.
Thank you. I guess just to close, I as a parent, and I always have been such an advocate and supporter of our teachers. I'll continue to do so, and I'll try to rally as much as I can. I wish there was a little bit more direction on what we can do and where I know there is power. I know there's power behind our voice. I know that we have already made tremendous strides. I feel like that's the teachers. I feel like all of you educators and faculty members have done so much to change what has already just happened. But now I feel like the ball is really rolling to get school started. I don't know how much they can actually cut and change. It's the class sizes. I think that's the biggest thing that we can control right now. Ventilation isn't going to get changed within the next 2 weeks, but if we're sending kids back, that's going to happen. What are the things within our power that we can control? And especially in our neighborhood, I feel like it's predominantly working people, sometimes multiple jobs. People are trying to just get by and sending their kids to school. I don't know what the statistics are. I know the TDSB said 30%, 30% that are going online, 70 back to class. I'd be very interested to find out what that number is in our riding specifically, because I bet it's probably a lot higher of people that are returning to the classroom, because parents don't have an option. It's not like they don't want their kids to be safe, but they just do not have an option. And they're hoping and trusting our government has our safety and well-being as a priority, which it doesn't seem to. So I just, we just need to have more information and to know what it is we can do and where and how we can help teachers. If we had that, I'm sure we can rally enough power and voices to do what needs to be done.
Well, thank you, Julia. And Jessica, one more conclusion remarks from you?
So what Julie said, parents, what you can do, call the education minister, call Doug Ford, leave those messages, write those letters, start the petitions, and take on advocacy yourself like you already have. Go to his office and go up there as a group and tell him this plan does not work for us as parents. We did it as OSSTF and we saw it when we were bargaining. We made a difference. We were all over the news, and that's the biggest thing as well. Social media. With the Ford government, we've seen that social media seems to play a very big part in getting things changed or getting Mr. Ford's attention. So going online, Twitter, Facebook, retweeting things, tweeting your experiences, because you are such a big community as parents, it's going to get shared. It will make a difference. And I just think that starting by calling Doug Ford's office and Stephen Lecce and say, I don't like this plan, it doesn't work, my kids don't even feel safe. That is a great start. And if you see unions out doing anything, join us. We love it when parents come. We love to hear your stories. It's fantastic. So I think that's a really good way to get involved. And I just want to thank everyone here for sharing your experiences. It's been really great. And from the parents, I really hope that as an educator, I can do my best to support your kids.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Jessica. I'll come to Sarah Vance.
Yeah, just to echo what people have said. And in terms of when you are tweeting or you're on social media, totally agree with what Jessica said. Please use the hashtag #SafeSeptember. That's what people are rallying behind, and that's gained a lot of traction. And please, when you're trying to figure out what to do as a parent and how to get that information and how to make sure you're able to channel your energies as effectively as possible, I'd encourage you to join the Ontario Parent Action Network. You can join them on Facebook and other forms of social media. That's a great pragmatic thing that you can do right now. Tonight, you can give Doug Ford a call tonight. And on a micro level, but in that way of like, that in our own neighborhoods, we can also have impact. There's a couple of really great things that a wonderful group in Toronto that's called Standing Up for Racial Justice is doing. And one is that they're encouraging parent councils at any school that is in a more affluent neighborhood to pass a motion at the beginning of the year saying that they are going to rechannel a certain percentage of their fundraising this year to schools that are low income, highly racialized schools. It's pragmatic. It's a very important piece because in schools that I've worked in, their fundraising is non-existent, and most of those parents, that's not an option. The other thing too, literally make masks and bring them to the low income racialized school in your neighborhood, because the reality is when people die of COVID-19 in this city, 83% of the people who've been diagnosed in Toronto are racialized people. And the people who die overwhelmingly will be racialized people living in low income neighborhoods like our neighborhood, and it's not right. So on that micro level, make a mask, take it to people. You could help save somebody's life. And on that macro level, to keep fighting, to join an organization that's going to help you channel those limited energies so we can do the best we can to keep struggling in this situation. So Ontario Parent Action Network, #SafeSeptember.
Well, thank you. Thank you to everyone for joining us this evening. And thank you to the parents and educators who participated in our panel. Julie, Jessica, Paul, Dave, and Sarah. Thank you to the official opposition leader, my leader, Andrea Horwath, for participating tonight. I understand the anxiety this is causing families, parents and teachers want a thoughtful approach to reopening. They deserve proactive measures to help ensure the safety of staff and students and the funding necessary to make that happen. We have asked the Ombudsman of Ontario to launch an urgent and independent review of the government's plans. Parents deserve to know that the province is doing its best to implement the measures necessary to meet the highest standards recommended by the medical, scientific, and educational experts. No one expects the work to be easy, but the government has already wasted too much time on a patchwork effort. The investment and hard work must be undertaken immediately for the sake of our children and our community. Thank you again for joining us. To all of you, those of you who are joining, Faisal Hassan, NDP, thank you and take care and good night. Bye.
Thanks.